first experience with change came before I was at JPS. I worked with the cigarette company of Jamaica at the time, Carreras Group, when it was bought out by British American Tobacco. I'm not sure how many persons have known about that. And the transformation there was, in my experience, one of the best change management experiences I've ever had. And this was easily almost 20 years ago. The change management took place in two main phases. The first was the closure of the manufacturing plant. Those who may be familiar with the fact that we stopped manufacturing cigarettes in Jamaica quite a while back. And cigarette company is one of those typical older Jamaican companies where it's almost like a family environment where persons left high school and started working there, and came in batches. So persons knew each other for several years. You know each other's families, you've been to school together, all those different things, different milestones you have shared with each other. And one day, this person is not there anymore. One day, for example, you may not have worked in the plant, maybe you're in the administrative team, and this virgin that you've had for how long that used to work on a particular machine in the plant is not there anymore. And it's more than just a business decision. There's a lot of the people aspect that's involved in change management. And while I'm not going to dwell too much on that in my presentation, which is going to speak more to technology at JPS, I just want to encourage you to bear in mind that transformation on the outset and to everybody else looking on is going to give you great results if you have an awesome project that has been delivered on time, on budget, all those wonderful things. But you have persons who are going to be displaced because of the changes that you're making, and you also have the persons who are left behind. So I'm going to encourage you to not forget the persons who have been left behind. The reason why that change to me was successful was the preparation that the leadership team did, not only for themselves, but for the organization. They brought consultants in to prepare the persons who were going to be leaving, as well as the persons who were going to be left behind. So before anyone knew that they were going to be made redundant, these consultants came and spoke to everyone as a single group, regardless of whether you knew you were leaving or not. And you were given preparation on financial management, emotional management, mental preparedness for this change that's going to happen. And it was real. It was a very real conversation that was had. And I was one of those persons that received that pink slip. Of course, it was still a shock because I thought it was important. But one of the important things as well that was communicated is not about whether or not you're important to the organization. It's about what's important to the bigger picture for the move of the organization. So, on to transformation at JPS. At JPS, another thing with British American Tobacco. When they came, rebranding was a big deal. One day you were walking in and it was Craveney and everything was a regular cigarette company of Jamaica. The next day you came in and the screensaver was British American Tobacco. The doors were changed and the image on the door was a British American Tobacco leaf. Your pens and your notepads all said British American Tobacco. So there was no doubt that you were working in a new organization. There is no looking back. There was no looking back, right? So that's another important aspect of change management. In many cases, in order for the change to work, you need to close the door on the past and prevent persons from being able to go back. So for example, you might have a system or a process that's being changed and persons may be able to use Excel to bypass some of the things that you're trying to put in. Whoever is supposed to accept that report or that update should insist, I am not accepting anything in Excel. You need to use a new system to give me the information that I need, or else your report doesn't exist. It's not going into my final update, it's not going into the final report that goes up to whoever. It doesn't exist unless you use a new system. And we need to insist on that if some of these changes. So some things can be gradual and run in parallel, but some things you need to just cut in order for it to properly die so you can transform and transition to the new change. So transformation at JPS. JPS, as you know, is your friendly electric utility. We love you, especially when you pay your bills on time. And where we're coming from, when I first joined JPS, this is several years ago, so I'm a bit older than 7 years ago. When I first joined JPS, I was an analyst and then moved into their billing department. And in the billing department, my job was to lead a team of persons who had to first translate chicken scratch handwriting into and enter data on every single meter assessment that was done across the entire island. So we would print what's called a service order or work order with the blank areas for them to fill in, and that would be completed in the parishes, and they would send all of those papers to the central office where we would manually, this is less than 10 years ago guys, we would manually enter all of that, and you'd have to decipher what the person was writing, and if you couldn't decipher it, you'd have to call them in the field and ask them, so when you visited this place 3 months ago, what you saw again? That's what we're moving from, that's what we're to move from. And this was what people were used to. This is the way we do things. This is the right way to do it because this is the only way we're going to get it right because they have to write it down. This is the mindset that we're coming from. So the basics of our activity at JPS, as you can imagine, we go out and read our meters, and the meter reading comes in, we bill our customers. If there's an issue with that billing, then we send somebody out to take a look at your meter, and that person fills out a service order, and that service order comes in and it has to be manually entered into the system. Similarly, meter readings were uploaded when you came back to base. Meter reader's handheld was docked and it had to be uploaded, and we used to have to pack up the handhelds and send them up by DHL or internal bureau, have them downloaded and then send them back out again. Very efficient, right? At that time. So, of course, the great decision was taken by the gods in IT that we need to change this. We need to implement some awesome new system that's going to help us with meter reading, it's going to help us with billing, it's going to help us with customer service. But some of the things that we needed to bear in mind is we're not just changing a system, we're changing a system. So you know when Jamaica people talk about the system, yeah, we're changing the system. So the system was a company that is coming from privatization with the same set of persons who were with the company from when it was owned by the government. We have old or no technology across the organization. We have very manual intensive processes, none of which were documented at the time. We have several operational inefficiencies, as you can imagine, and I hope not everybody in here is from IT, but one of the challenges was that our initiatives were led by IT. Can you guess why that might be a challenge?
Challenge.
All right, so we'll get to that. Externally, of course, the high cost of electricity, driving factors for the change, the high cost of electricity, the theft of electricity, poor customer satisfaction, poor relationships with our regulator, the OUR, and of course we're just known as a hassle to do business with. So these are all internal and external factors influencing whether or not we're going to make this change successful. So what we found was important, and I will just admit up front that hindsight is 2020, hence the clarity in this presentation. None of this we knew up front. We went into a lot of this pretty blind, as you can imagine. But what we have learned is that it's very important to begin with the end in mind. What should the end look like? What is it that we're trying to achieve? And not what are the objectives of the project. Reduced headcount, increase efficiency by 5%, reduce paperwork by 3%. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not the end. That's what I'm talking about. What should it look like? What should it feel like? What should it taste like? What should it smell like? What should it be? What should we be? Who should we be after this change? The end in mind is one, we need to see a transformation in our culture. One of the things that we agreed on is that it didn't make sense to start changing all these systems and we had the same poor behavior associated with it. So if customer service is the issue, changing the system not going to improve customer service, not by itself. So we had to look at culture of service that goes along with this new system, because that's what's going to want to make the persons, one, want to use the new system that you're putting in place, and two, they are going to have a vested interest in wanting to improve their own processes, because no, it's not about the system, it's about a different culture of service. So when the system not working, they're not going to hide and wait for it to pop down and then say, you see there, did they tell you? But no, because there's a culture of service, what you're now going to hear is, hey, system not working, I need to serve my customer. Why isn't the network up? I need to serve my customer. That's a different mindset when it comes to that culture of service. Then of course we need to improve the technology to support that culture, and along with all of that, not necessarily as a side effect, but we expect as a byproduct that our customers' experience should change. Because we have changed, we have put the supporting infrastructure in place to support our change, we expect that our customers' experience should be different. So of course, in looking at transformation, we identified that we're going to take it deeper than just what we typically call the organization. We're going to look at the culture of the organization, and that starts with the things that we say as an organization that we're interested in doing. So many persons here would be familiar with Kelly Tomlin, or recent past president. All right. So one of the first things that she did was she identified that in going around and meeting with all of our employees, that's the first thing she did. She went around the entire island and met with just about all of our employees face to face. Nobody knew what the vision or the mission of the company was, but it was on the wall in every location. But no one knew what the mission or the vision was. Therefore, it meant nothing to any of the employees. So the first thing that she identified was we needed to redefine. If it meant that we came back to the exact same words, that's fine, but we need to redefine our mission and our vision and our values as an organization. And these were defined by the employees. It wasn't a group of persons who sat in a room, brought in a consultant, who went out and observed quietly and came back and said, yeah, this is what you are. No. This statement was a result of focus groups with every single set of employees. I think we covered almost 90% of our employees, and we had over 1,600 employees at the time. So this focus group came up with the values of the organization, Aspire, and the vision of the organization. Why was that important? Because we had to own it. If we were going to actually live it and do it, we had to be the owners of it. Right now, with the exception of obviously of persons who came in after having defined that, every employee can recall or recount that moment where they were in that meeting and came up with some idea that contributed to that vision and those value statements. Importantly as well was looking at our goals. So we had some really cool goals: grow the business, improve our political framework, become brilliant at the basics, etc. But we noticed that a critical person was nowhere. We started in 2010 to 2013 with some basics where we upgraded our infrastructure, looked at introducing smart meters, and upgraded our GIS system, all with a long-term plan to achieve or implement what's called a smart grid. So the smart grid, as the name implies, is an electricity grid with intelligence on it. And what we were expecting is that the improvement in the technologies would help us to improve our service delivery to our customers. So it was bigger than just reading a meter, generating a bill, right? Yes, we can get smart in those activities, but it was much bigger than that. The entire grid needed to grow to be smart. So we took it beyond the immediate problems that we had. So in moving towards that smart grid, we started with the basic smart meters, then we moved into upgrading our call center software, customer information system, and the communication infrastructure on the grid itself. As you can imagine, if you're going to have an intelligent grid, it has to be able to communicate. These devices have to be able to communicate. And when I'm talking about an intelligent grid, I'm talking about also a self-healing grid, one that detects when there's a fault and can actually repair certain types of faults on its own, and then send back to home base to say, this is what happened, this is the issue, come take a look tomorrow when you wake up, instead of coming out tonight to figure out what the issue is, right? So that's where we were moving towards. Then we implemented our new outage management system, new business intelligence tool to support that, our asset management, new HR management, pay-as-you-go for our customers. So we're building. What we found is that it made more sense to try, instead of jumping straight to this wonderful, fabulous smart grid, let's build on the technology, let's build on the intelligence that's on the grid, and build out to our customers. So we started as a combination, not just working on the inside, but also what is impacting our customers on the outside. And then of course we implemented mobile money. We have a mobile app. We're most of the way there in terms of our smart grid. We have smart street lights. We have several components of the self-healing grid. We have kiosks in some of our offices. So you can see the progression of the changes there. Now every step along the way is a project of some sort, a mini project that's a part of the bigger initiative. And every step along the way, people are involved. In some cases, some of the new technologies resulted in persons either being shifted or going home because the roles have changed or roles are no longer necessary. So whereas you used to have 60 billing agents doing data entry, now we're down to 20. And even with improved technology, we're seeing in the next couple of years, we're going to go down to 5. 10 years ago when we visited a utility in Canada, they have over 1 million customers. Same processes, it's generating electricity, reading a meter, all of those different things. But with their advanced technology, their billing team has one person. Millions of customers, one person who assesses all the errors on the bills and uses the appropriate software to do the corrections. One person, right? And we're coming from 60 at the time of that visit. So, whole heap of work to do, as you can imagine. And then of course, improving the customer experience was critical. What we found was important there was we needed to establish and develop certain strategic skills for our employees. So we changed the skill set of our leadership out in the parishes, where persons were no longer strictly technical individuals who were leading in our parishes and regions, but persons who were skilled up in terms of relationship building. And we changed some of our team structures. Instead of having purely technical teams, we had customer relationship type teams now out in the field. So that each of our large customers now has a specific individual who's like an account manager for them. Believe it or not, we never had anything like that before. You used to just call the president and your brethren that work in whatever technical department and you beg him to do a thing for you. Now you have a dedicated account manager who deals specifically with your issues and you're treated as a VIP. Imagine JPS treating you like a VIP, right? We had to define a new culture that was based on our values, and so we went across the entire organization, and we still have regular refreshers every quarter for our customer service and leadership staff to ensure that we're speaking differently to our customers, that we're behaving in tune and aligned with our values. So I'll give you an example. We were rolling out the culture of service training, and we insisted that our customers need to be able to call you by name. When they come in, they need to be able to speak to you like you're a person, you're a human being. And so we started to issue name badges to our frontline staff. And so the employees on the front line were excited, but one customer service manager said, no, I don't want anybody to know my name. So you know, that's a whole mindset shift that had to take place. It's one of our biggest offices. And she was not interested in having any customer know who she was because she don't want anybody to find her and know who she is and go look her up, because when JPS go lock off them light, is she them go call her. And we're like, yeah, they should be calling you, that's your job. That's your job. So in redefining all of that, we needed to also take the fear out of our own employees, because you may know as well that several years ago, many of our employees would never wear anything that has JPS on the road. Never. For fear of their life, which is a real fear in some areas, but also just for fear of I'll never get through my supermarket shopping if I go into the supermarket with a JPS shirt on, because I'm going to become a walk-in kiosk for customer service complaints, right? And so one of the things that had to also change was our accessibility. So in order to remove that fear, we had to change how accessible we were as an organization. We also had to ensure that in the back end, we're measuring the important things. What is it that we're trying to achieve? What is it that we really need to get done? And so those are the things that we measure. We didn't measure how often you smile. We didn't measure those, we measure how quick you get out there to resolve a customer service issue. We measured the turnaround time for meter reading. We measured we have mystery shoppers that go into our parish offices and pretend to be customers and grade the customer service agents on very specific things. Not on how pleasant you were, that's part of it obviously, but I asked you a question about a particular issue with a bill. Did you give me the correct answers and the correct advice? And if you didn't, we're going to come out there with a team and we're going to train you all over again. Right? So we're measuring the important things and following up to ensure that we're correcting as we measure and identify. So we made it into a positive competition across the parishes, so they don't feel as if they're being beaten, but they're being encouraged. And of course, it's important to reward the behavior that you want to see. So we implemented across the entire organization, regardless of the department that you're in, a series of customer service awards. So if a customer calls to say, this lineman came and was very pleasant to me when he came to fix whatever the fault was on the line, you're gonna get a big up for doing something like that, right? So the results were, we saw customer satisfaction move from below 20% in 2011 to over 68% in 2016. And beyond, we have seen a plateau, as you can imagine, to about 68%, which is about where we are now. So improvements in our processes included, because of the system implementations, increased dispatch efficiency and reduced response time, reduced time to deliver bills because of the technology, reduced disconnections, faster reconnections. Now, if you pay your bill in office or online, your reconnection order is dispatched immediately because of the connection to the system. So your payment is linked directly to our work order system, so that our reconnector is dispatched as soon as we receive your payment, right? So those are some of the improvements that we saw. Another thing that we had to drill into the minds of our own employees was that while we love to disconnect because it encourages payment, disconnection means we're not generating revenue. When you're disconnected, the meter is not spinning. So it's not to the company's benefit to disconnect our customers. So that's another culture change that we had to work through with our customers. Okay. Of course, we also saw improved compliance with our regulatory standards because of the implementation of the systems. So lessons learned. Number one lesson, of course, was proper change management. We saw the negative impacts from a people perspective, both internally and externally, from a communication perspective and a preparation perspective. We're still in the learning stage when it comes to proper project management at JPS. And one of the things that we do really well is we write really good project plans. Really good project plans. But our implementation is not always so fabulous. We tend to jump straight from the plan to implementation. Not much on the initiation, not much on the stakeholder conversations, and so we see the negative impacts of that. Very important, right? Spoke about the stakeholder engagement. Even if you don't think somebody needs to be involved, from the very first meeting, at least let them know what's happening, right? You may not have So let me rephrase that. Very likely, you're looking at the project like this. So you think you have a wide view of the project, but there's always a blind spot because of your role in the organization or your role in the project or your experience. When you open up and you allow stakeholders, at least at the very beginning, to say their piece, then they can start eliminating and say, okay, maybe I don't need to involve you until we're near implementation. But at least you know what is happening, and in my communication plan, you're for information purposes only. You don't have to be in on every meeting. And so we don't go into meeting overload and drive people crazy, right? So the stakeholder engagement is critical. We think that we only need to involve the persons who are directly going to be using the system. But one of the things that pisses off, forgive the French, our customer service agents is they hear about new technologies from our customers. And new implementations and new initiatives and marketing strategies, and they hear about it from our customers. That's ridiculous. How can you be part of the organization and you're hearing about something that has been planned for how long by everybody else behind closed doors? You now have to answer questions about it. And it's the day before or the day after implementation, somebody sends you a random brochure and say, here, read this because people are going to call about it. That don't make no sense. That does not make any sense. So we need to be involving the people who are going to have to answer questions about it, the help desk who has to support it. These people have to be involved from the get-go, right? Very, 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 very important as well. Setting very clear goals and objectives. So we're going to upgrade the customer information system. Why and to what end? Everybody in this room, when I say we're going to upgrade our customer information system, because of the role that you play in the organization, you each have a different benefit you're expecting from that system. I haven't communicated anything yet. All I've said is we're implementing the customer information system. And so 2 years from now, when this is finally implemented, and you're going to say, so what about the, and how come it doesn't, and why it doesn't, right? I never communicated what the real objective was, that the customer information system is only going to be a database because we cannot afford the full blown with all the bells and whistles. So all we're doing is upgrading the database part of it. We're still going to have all the little pop-down things at the front until we get enough money to fix each of those little pop-down things one at a time. But that was not communicated, right? So what is the goal? What are the real objectives? Those need to be very clear and agreed on and understood up front. Very important. Constant communication. Very, very important. So at the start of the project, we'll have all these project meetings, and every week we're in a project meeting, and we get all these wonderful updates, and then 2 months later, everybody's like, when last you hear about the Oracle upgrade? Somebody told me, you know, I heard there was a meeting, but weren't you in one of those initiation meetings? Yeah, but I haven't received that invite. You know what the status is? So you're left to wander and to drift. Although you were big and gung-ho in the launch and the initiation, you need to, when you're letting go, because not every stakeholder obviously needs to be along for the ride, but don't just let them go to wander like sheep. You need to give them information and keep them periodically updated on what is going on. Because otherwise, guess what the story is going to be? Boy, I'm not going for the project, you know. Even though you are busy, very, very busy, working really, really hard on the Oracle upgrade, but the people who were initially involved don't hear anything else, so the project must stop. Yet another failed project. See there? IT. Right? So we need to keep in constant communication, because then a year now after you have started, you can call them back again for UAT. Really? A year after? I don't even remember what we started talking about. And by then my needs have changed. And you weren't keeping in touch with me. So now this is irrelevant to me. What you come in with is irrelevant. And then you lose your stakeholder buy-in. Right? So the constant communication is very important. Also, how well are you performing against these goals and objectives that you have set? Not at the end of the project, please, please, please. No. Don't wait until the project done to then check and say, oh, We were supposed to reduce headcount by 5, but we had to actually increase it by 3 because we're running in parallel. And we didn't realize that we needed to have 3 extra people to be able to run the 2 systems in parallel. And it's at the end of the project is when you realize that you haven't actually met the objective. In fact, you've made matters worse. Yes, I'm speaking from personal experience. Right? So we want to be measuring as the project is progressing against the objective. So that means you can't have just lag indicators. It can't be end of project indicators alone that you're dealing with. You have to have lead indicators that are with you and being measured throughout the life of the project. How else are you going to know that you're on track? Most of us measure that we're on track because time is passing. We're supposed to be 3 months into the project now. 3 months done, yep, we're on track. Doing what? What have you been doing for 3 months? Have you actually achieved those milestones, if you even set milestones, for that 3-month mark? No time passing, so we're now 30% complete because 3 months have passed. That's not good enough. Right? And then we want to learn from our past mistakes. So most, if not all of the projects that we implement, we've done some version of it before. If you've been in the industry long enough, you have seen it all before, you have experienced it in some way, shape or form. Try not to repeat the same mistakes. If you see the mistake coming, because many times you can see it, it's kind of like the horizon down there says like a horse that's galloping towards you, and you see the dust before you see the horse, and you can see it coming. If you see it coming, say something. Guys, last time I did this project, or something like this kind of implementation, we realized that if we didn't have certain servers in place beforehand, if we didn't pay down on XYZ, if we didn't order, so one of our lessons learned at JPS is procurement. Lord have mercy. Ordering meters from China or whichever foreign Asian place. So you have to order it and they need X amount of money up front. So your finance team need to know that money needs to be ready. Money is not ready the day of the order or the day the order comes. The money has to be ready from way before, right? And even before that, you have to go through your procurement process. So when you say you're going to implement 50,000 meters in 2019, you have to start from now. Implementation of 50,000 meters doesn't start January 1, 2019. Implementation start from now because they have to be ordered in order to get here for 2019. And guess what? When they get here, it's not off the wharf and into your home. It's off the wharf and to Bureau of Standards, because Bureau of Standards have to do a sample test, and Bureau of Standards have a backlog that we've known about for 3 years. So how long is it going to take for the Bureau of Standards to do the test for the 50,000 meters that you want to implement by December 31st? And then you have to train, because they're new meters, you have to train the technicians on the new meter that they're about to install, right? And then you have to train the customer service rep, who's going to have to explain to the customer, no ma'am, it's no longer a dial, it's now a digit, and when you see the red light, this is what it means, and if it is beeping, maybe. But you get what I'm saying? All of that is just around implementing 50,000 new meters, All of that stuff have to happen when you're implementing, but it sounds, in the boardroom, it sounds so simple and so easy. I mean, we install meters every day, so just go install 50,000 more. I mean, what is the big deal? You install meters every day, but it's 50,000 new meters that we've never used before, right? So there's a whole, I don't know how to explain it. Yes, there's a whole life that blooms from installing 50,000 new meters, right? So please think back. The last time that we had to install 50,000 new meters, this was the pain and the struggle that we went through. We had to make sure that we ordered them 6 months in advance. We had to make sure that we call the BSJ and we say, the meters coming this time, do beg clear your backlog for us, right? Many times we're afraid to say what the real issues are. And it's easier to say, yeah man, because everybody else big is sitting in front of you. And then you're going to be the naysayer, you're going to be the troublemaker, you're going to be the one, Mr. Doom and Gloom, Miss Miserable Mary, who is always telling everybody all the negative things that are going to happen, when in fact you're simply trying to point out the reality. You have asked me to implement 50,000 meters by December. Mr. Finance, I need the money now. I know it's 2018 and you want it in 2019, but I kind of need the money now. And you didn't budget for it now, but you have a plan that requires it now. So what are you going to do? So we need to, that communication is also, that courage in communication is also very important. And you can't back it up with feelings, guys. The C-suite don't deal with feelings, right? You have to come with numbers, you have to come with figures, you have to be pointing out, look, 20% of this, the cost of the project is going to go up by 5% because X, Y, Z, and we're going to need additional resources to do this, da, 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 da. Right? So yes, it's okay to commit, but you have to commit with your disclaimers and point out these are the things that are going to happen. It took us a while to get there. It took us, and it took inclusion in the conversation to get there. I'll explain. When you only have the people at the very top talking, you lose a whole lot. So so on a big scale, within a year of Kelly joining the organization, the transformation team was formed. She had completed her circuit of talking to all the employees. The transformation team was formed, and we went out with our mandate within a year of her joining. For each, and I have to look at each project individually. For each individual project, from the moment the project is conceptualized, we bring the stakeholders in and start talking to the stakeholders. This is before we even get approval for funding, etc. We try to have stakeholder meetings even before the project is finalized with a goal, so that persons can know this is coming. Let us know, what your input is, what the challenges you anticipate, so we can put all of those into the project plan to be able to serve.
How do your employees see the company? Do they see them as we, or do they see them as them?
They see the company as we and leadership as them. We just did a culture survey the other day, and we're typical Jamaican. We look one way right here, so we look another way right here. So when you look on us from this angle, we are one of the most angry and aggressive companies they've ever surveyed in the 1,000 companies they've surveyed around the world, but we have the highest level of employee engagement.
Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's really weird.
You spoke about your transformation teams. Was that headed by an internal person? You took person from outside the lead?
We didn't really have a lead. Everybody was internal, but we were there was the head of audit, myself as customer service at the time, we had an engineer, we had two engineers in different areas of engineering. We had the union person, we had an HR person, we had a finance person. Yeah. So it was a wide cross-section
team. And not a one person. I think sometimes we go around companies that we have a transformation person, or we call them some nice thing like business process engineer. We're not seen as opposed to a team.
Yeah, and that person is John who leads the project, and it becomes John's project. So when John gone, the project don't exist anymore. And when it popped down, it was John's fault.
Or if you don't like John, the project is...
It's going to fail, exactly.
And in terms of lessons, I just wanted to know how
that happens. I'd recommend a team as opposed to a person. You can really hit the mark if you have the right person, and you can miss horribly if you have the wrong person. One of the things that you'll find, as in your own experience as well, is that you're trying to achieve something. So you're on your time continuum and you're trying to achieve something, and it's never working because you don't have the right person, you don't have the right technology, people's mindsets are not in the right place. So all those things have to coincide. If Kelly came here 15 years ago, she would have failed miserably because it wasn't the right time for her to be here. Everything had to be, when she was on the plane coming to Jamaica, the headline of the newspaper was "Fight for Your Light." All of our top customers, JPS, top customers who she's about to go and be the head of, were ganging up against her company. Nobody else could have come in, not nobody else, but this was the right time for her to come in because there was a reason for her to lead us at that time. We needed to change the perception. We needed to change how we dealt with our customers. We needed to change our relationship with the regulator. And we needed to change how we dealt with each other within the organization. So she was there for that purpose. Pardon?
Yeah, law degree.
Yeah, she has a law degree and communication and
What
stuff.
was it? I think it was good that she wasn't an engineer. So the soft skills and the people skills that we wanted. And I think operating in a company that is such highly technological and a lot of engineers, having a non-technical coming to lead us would have been a change like that. Tell us about, we know this thing about. I think
But the thing is as well, she didn't come to change
right. I never
how we sell electricity.
No.
That's not what she came for. That's not what she came for. And so now that we've established some foundation things in the organization, we'll have a technical person who is leading the organization. And so we'll have our perception on our customer service. We can now build on our operations to match. Every leader has a time.